What up, my homies? I got a little something for you. So I'm out fishing today, obviously. I'm on Fireballs hanging out, and I stumbled across this real cool bite, and it's something that I showed you a couple years ago, and I've sort of tweaked it, and I used some new kind of like JDM baits to do it as well. But it's a fun way to catch them. And we just did like a jig video, right? We did that kind of finesse jig, that football stand-up style jig with either the stick bait or the wacky rig. You guys really like that, and it smashes them. But when you're fishing like grass and some of this emergent vegetation on some of these humps, some of this kind of like semi-offshore structure, 6 to 8 foot, 5 to 8 foot, you can't drag a jig through it, dude. You might be able to drag JT's like grass wither jig through it, but it's hard to drag a jig. And what this does, it allows you to present like a jig style presentation, but like in and around grass, and you don't even need a weed guard. So hit that like and subscribe button. I think you guys are gonna dig this. So what are we talking about? You know what we're talking about, dude. It's that time of year when I get out this guy, the Chatterbait Miniax. So Z-Man went a little crazy with like mini chatterbaits and all that. It went a little deep in my opinion, and frankly the new little jackhammer, the baby jack, no bueno, don't get that. The Miniax and the Evo Miniax, the one exclusive from Tackle Warehouse, solid baits, dude, and I'm still using them. I got one to show you that's like a JDM sneak bait that a couple of my buddies, a couple of you guys actually told me about. But what we're doing is this, it's sort of a sneaky presentation. A lot of guys will reel a chatterbait, right? You throw it out there and you're just reeling it. Maybe you'll rip it off the grass or rip it off of like a stump, kind of bang it around a little bit. Especially the Chatterbait Miniax, this guy seems to run through like gravel and stumps really well. I think it has to do with that kind of old school head, but I'm able to fish it in wood a lot more than like a standard jackhammer or like a chatterbait like the original. What I like to do is something a little bit different. And it was a great example this morning, dude. I probably caught like, I don't know, like 20, 25 in about 2 hours, hour and a half. And it 100% had to do with this retrieve. So basically, should I get to the juice right away? I won't drag you on, dude, like some videos. So what you do is this. With this vegetation, there's a lot of kind of submerged vegetation, 3, 5, 6 foot down, right? The Chatterbait Miniax in a 1/2 ounce, it runs a little bit deeper than a standard chatterbait, and there's a very good simple reason for it. It's because of the blade, right? So the blade is much smaller than what you're dealing with on like the regular standard style chatterbait, and that blade creates rise, right? So it pushes the bait up as you're reeling it. So there's less sort of push up as you're reeling a 1/2 ounce Chatterbait Miniax versus like a 1/2 ounce jackhammer. I would call it almost like trap fishing a chatterbait or jig fishing a chatterbait. All you do is you cast that thing out there, you let it sink down. And then what you're gonna do is before it actually hits the bottom, you actually take your rod and you kind of engage it and get some tension on it, but you start kind of a slow sweep, almost like you're worm fishing, almost like you're dragging a jig, and that's kind of where we're going with this. You kind of drag it and get that blade going, you know, but very slowly. You're just creating enough tension on kind of that side swipe to make that blade kind of tick. And then every once in a while, you might put like a quick, fast reel in it, right? Almost like hair jig it, have it pop up. Or if you do hit like a blade of grass or a little clump of grass because you let it get a little too low in the water column, you do that fast reel, dude. And you just want to keep that blade going ever so slightly, right? You're not trying to move it fast. You're just trying to almost imagine it like if the grass line or if the weeds underwater, as Al Lindler would say, are sort of the bottom, right? Instead of the bottom actually being the bottom, you're trying to drag that chatterbait right over the tips and tops of that grass, just like it's the bottom. And maybe every once in a while you'll kiss it and just touch it a little bit and give it a little fast reel to kind of jump it off. It's almost like slow rolling a swim bait, dude, just above the grass. What happens, I guess, is the bait kind of occasionally stalls because you're sweeping, you're reeling, and then you have to pick up line. You're sweeping, you're reeling, and then you pick up line. And like I said, every once in a while you put a little quickness on it and that thing hops up. I get most of my bites on sort of the end of that sweep as I'm like pulling it and it sort of stalls or pauses, or when I do those fast couple retrieves and it sort of triggers them. And I think it's a lot like, you know, like a trap bite, or when you're ripping a jig, like stroking a jig, or when you're just dragging a worm, right? They're following it and they're waiting for that best moment, that pause, or it forces them to make a decision or something when they're like, oh, that's when I got to eat that thing, and they clamp down on it. So I've had a lot of you guys reach out to me and you're like, bro, if you love the Chatterbait Miniax, you're gonna love this. And this is this guy right here. It's the Jackal Super Break Blade. So it's a little different than the Chatterbait Miniax, and I say that because it has some of the same qualities, but the bigger sizes, it's more like sized like that baby jack, It's a little bit bigger in the 1/2 ounce size. The blade is a little bit bigger, the body is a little bit bigger, but it's still not as big as say like a Z-Man Jackhammer, right? It's still a downsized chatterbait. It's a very unique style bait. It actually has a little brush guard on it, as you can see right there. I got this one all rigged out, so there's a brush guard on there. It's very comparable to the Chatterbait Miniax, but a little bit bigger. The cool part about the Jackall Break Blade is the blade goes, right? Like it's almost like the Jackhammer of smaller kind of chatterbaits. And I've been going kind of back and forth between the two. There's a little more rise to the Break Blade versus the Chatterbait Miniax. I can keep that Miniax down a little bit deeper, but to give them something different, a little different vibration. And for this presentation, it's all about being able to move that bait slow and steady and keep that blade going without overpowering it, I guess. You're just kind of using that worm or that jig, slow sweep, slow drag. And it's hard, even with the Miniax, to keep that blade going. And with that Break Blade, it's a little bit easier. For some reason, the blade works better. It's almost like that Jackhammer thing. You know, the Jackhammer blades, dude, literally you throw it out and you engage the reel and the thing starts going but it's a super cool retrieve. The one thing I'm gonna warn you about, I do this with softer rods. So with the Chatterbait Miniax, I do this with a Halo. It's a Rave, and then I got a Shimano SLX on there. This is a 7-foot medium. Sounds real light, right? It's actually like my same topwater rod. I throw a spook on it, a popper, things along those lines. It has a lot of flex to it, as you can see in some of the clips that I'm showing you. So it bends over a lot. It loads. It's almost like a crankbait style rod, but it's a graphite rod. And with this retrieve, you're really kind of just creating slight tension and you don't feel a bite. You just feel the rod load up. And sometimes it's gonna be grass, right? It's gonna happen, you're gonna have to kind of pop it. But usually, and that's what I found this morning when I kind of smoked them, it loads up and it's a fish that just has sucked it in. They're just behind it and they finally get right up to it and they pull on it. And then you use that rod to kind of load up and pull on them. You can use whatever kind of trailers you want. I prefer straight style trailers. We've talked about it before, so I'm not gonna like dwell on it, but you can see I got a little spunk shad on there. I think for the most part, I'm mimicking brim with this, but I do have like a whitish one with kind of a brim trailer. My other trailer that I really like is that Komodo, that Mini or that Komodo Junior. It fits really well on there and it just swims, right? I think what's happening is it's just kind of shaking ever so slightly as you're dragging it over the top. I don't want a bunch of kicking or a bunch of drag because I want that thing just to move enough to make that blade work. I don't want any appendages creating drag behind that too, because oftentimes it can inhibit that blade starting to, from what I've found. I gotta send a shout out to the guys, and you know who you are. Thank you guys for telling me about this Break Blade. And then Talking Tackle, you guys saw their shop over on Lake Chickamauga, dude. Those guys are super cool. They actually had some in stock because I couldn't find them at Tackle Warehouse, bro. And they hooked me up and shipped them to me, dude. So I kind of got a little stash of the Break Blade now, which is pretty badass. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna get back to fishing, or I'm gonna get stormed on. I don't know if you can see that cloud back there. It's no bueno. But let me know what you guys think and throw in a little chatterbait this time of year and give it a try if you haven't. It's absolutely killer. Later, my homies.